Hi, Ron LeGrand here. Before we get started with the podcast, I thought you might want to know that I recently recorded a 90-minute online training about how we make so much money today in the terms business. That's on pretty houses in pretty neighborhoods, not the junk houses that we have to go rehab or wholesale. I go through step by step on exactly what I and thousands of my students are doing right now to make the fastest and the easiest money in real estate without using your money or credit. If you're interested in doing just that, go to thementorpodcast.com/free training. See you there.
Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mentor Podcast. If you're not a member, go to thementorpodcast.com right now and sign up. It's free. We broadcast every Wednesday. And we got a lot of archived podcasts and really, really cool people like we're about to meet here. In fact, beside me is Jen and Joe Delafave, and they wrote a letter to us about what's going on in their life. And I was so impressed by it. I thought we got to get these guys on this podcast so you can hear their story. So I'm going to let you guys start with your story. I know you started in 2000, so you're kind of old here, aren't you?
Well, I still feel young, but yeah, I got started a long time ago. Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us how you get started. I want to hear the whole progress to where you are today. Because today you're doing, what'd you say, 5 or 6 houses a month?
We did 9 last month, so we had a pretty decent month. So that's correct.
All right. Well, I'm going to come back to that after we get from back where then to up to now. So.
Yeah, it's definitely been a process. I kind of grew up as a landlord's son, going to summers off, going to do all of the things a landlord's son would do and learning all the things what not to do the hard way, right? Watching my, family going to middle of the night for broken things. So I knew I always kind of wanted to get into real estate. I just didn't know what or how or, how that even look. And then fast forward, I'm now a little bit older. I'm the year 2000. And I'm at a friend's house, and he's going through his closet one day. He's clearing some stuff out. We were looking for something, and he happened to pull out, it was your course that he bought on a late night infomercial with his mom. And he's scrambling, pulling like old football gear out of the closet and baseball equipment. And then he's handing it, and he hands me this, like, hey, hang on to this, as he's just throwing things out of his closet. And I'm like, what is this? It was still in the cellophane wrapper.
Still got it?
Still got it right here.
Let me see it. I want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called a cash flow generator. That's fast cash. Okay.
Fast cash.
All right. Yeah. Yes. I think that's one we were selling on television at that time.
That was.
Mm-hmm. I'm mistaken. With John and Greg Rice, the world's smallest living twins.
Yes.
You ever see that commercial?
Absolutely. That's what they saw it on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad somebody bought it. What the heck?
He did. And unfortunately for him, he never even opened it. And it was just sitting there collecting dust for probably, a solid 6 months to a year. So as we were sitting there, I'm like looking at this thing in my hands, and it's talking about how anyone can quickly turn single family houses into cash without money, credit, or partners. And I was like,
surely you didn't believe that nonsense, did you, Joe?
Well, I was 22, so I fell for it.
Oh, okay. All right. Got you when you were too young to know any better, huh?
It got me. So I'm just like, this is gazing at me. So I think of like, is it just luck or whatever you call it? But this was like that fork in the road where I could have just thrown that down and continue looking for what we were.
Yeah.
Or I asked the nerve, I'm like, can I borrow this? And he was like, no, this is a lot of money. I'm like, I know, but you never even opened it. I was like, it's just sitting there collecting dust. I at least want to look at this stuff. And so we started talking about it. And so he's like, yeah, I'll let you, but you got to give it back. Well, 22 years later, I still haven't given it back. Still got it. But what happened was I watched the VCR tapes, the audio cassette tapes. I still have them. And then within a month, I had a deal under contract. I wholesaled that to another investor, just exactly like I followed your lessons 101, like not even how to show junkers. I waited outside. They walked through them themselves. I didn't like all the stuff that you taught. I did. And I cleared a check a few months later for $12,733. And
wow.
When I just turned 23 years old, that check could have had 5 other zeros after it. I felt like I was rich, right?
Man, you just told my story, except mine was in 1982. And I actually bought my first course, just for the record. Okay, I didn't borrow it, even though I didn't have the money. But same story. First wholesale check changed my life. In fact, your 12,000 probably about the same as my 3,000 in 1982. I don't know. So, but we all have to start somewhere, don't we?
Well, and more important was the money, was the proof of concept, the shut up check to all the doubters, all the friends and family who said, you're just out of your mind. This stuff is not working. And I learned a lot. I grew a lot from that experience. So I have Crohn's disease. So shortly after that, I was looking to get a job where I had health insurance and things like this. And this is where I think like if anybody learns anything is I didn't get into more coaching early enough, which this was like, I would think one of my mistakes I've made in my journey. So then after that, I get the job, the JOB, which always stands for just over broke. Doesn't matter how much you make. Usually you're still living, check to check, but I got into a good career, ended up buying a house. And then fast forward to 2008, I'm lucky enough to meet this young lady right here, who was a school teacher, had her own house, had her own career, and was doing very well for herself. I had my own house, and then we started dating.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that, in 2008, we all kind of know what happened to the market. And you're able to find deals right on the MLS because there wasn't a lot of buyers. I was a finance manager for a car dealership, so I had connections to all banks, had all my friends there. So I had really good ties to that. So I started finding deals right off the MLS a few months after her and I dated. And at first she thought I was a little crazy. Like, you own your own house. I own my own house. Why are you buying a third house?
And why are we going to all these old yucky houses?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew she was
my own way.
I knew she was really special when I would walk into these nasty houses, and she's my girlfriend at the time, and she's coming with me. I'm like, wow, she's pretty brave. There's been a bunch where she would, turn around and do the 180 and walk directly out. And those were
the good ones.
That's what I said. Those were the ones I was most interested in. A bunch of those we ended up buying. So then we started falling off course and started not following the Ron rules. And we started burning houses and buying one house a year, fixing it, rehabbing, but buying it right. So I felt like that was okay.
Better explain what that means to our listeners.
So we would buy it with cash, a property, distressed property. We would renovate it.
Mm-hmm.
We would then rent it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would, obviously there's a whole series of mistakes there. And then you would refinance it with your own credit.
Mm-hmm.
And you would repeat it. So those were a handful of mistakes we were there. Although we were doing well with it, I got to say. And then I don't know how or what happened, but I got really lucky. Jen decides to, we're married in 2010. We start having a family shortly after that, a few years later. Jen walks away from teaching, and she's going to now help with the business from home while raising 2 little ones. We have a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. And at that time, it was a good fit for us. We had my job, and it was able to support us. We had a handful of rental properties. And then Jen kind of got thrusted in it because she wasn't her thing at first.
I didn't do numbers. All of a sudden, now I'm a property manager.
And one time, I don't know how, but for some reason, the county mailed all of our tax bills to like one of our rental properties, and nobody knows why. And the people renting the house just kept on throwing them out. So come fast forward, I'm like, why haven't we received any of the bills? And then we called the county, found out, talked to the tenants, like, oh yeah, we've been just throwing those right in the garbage. So we realized Jen needed to help out a little bit more because I was working a lot. And so 2016, I stumbled upon more Ron training on YouTube about the pretty house business. And this is where that fork in the road happened again. And this time I wasn't going to let the opportunity pass twice. So I started diving into the pretty house business, heavily watching. We ended up getting, through you guys, a coaching with Tony Pearl, which was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
We met with him every week for 6 months or so. And
you went all in. I remember being a little nervous, but I trusted you. And the Gold Club and the this and the that. And he said, we're going to do it. We're doing it now. And we're not looking back. And, I'm so grateful that we did that because, it ended up where we are today because of those choices.
Yeah.
So So, Joe, would you have actually moved forward if she hadn't put the cattle prod to you?
It's kind of strange. It's one of those things where I think when the right situation comes and the teacher is there and the student is there, the magic happened. And it really was, I don't know if I'm just the luckiest guy in the world or what it is, but I just keep on having these things happen. So
I was really fascinated by the rent to own model that you talked about so often. And I remember distinctly being in Vegas and he's dealing with a plumbing issue at one of our properties. I'm like, this is horrible. Here we have these properties, we're trying to get away and he's dealing with this. And I knew it was just part of the gig, but that stuck with me. And so now not having to deal with those calls is just game changing, and there's so many great things about rent to own, obviously, but that really brought me aboard that whole process.
That's because you put the tenant buyers in the houses and the repairs go on them as a condition of your option. Mm-hmm. And you are also getting some pretty good sized non-refundable deposits, aren't you?
Yes,
absolutely.
Could never get those out of tenants, could you?
Never. No. And that was really the game changer for us. So after we dove really deep into more of this, we got the training. We wrote our first terms deal, 0% mortgage, no money down. I had to literally almost fight with the seller to take the $100 deposit, $500 a month payment going towards principal only. The guy was great, happy. It was a great deal for us and him. Mm-hmm. Started doing a few more of those. And that's where we had the crazy, what we call 2017 summer, where all of our single family homes that we had a little over a handful at the time, but we decided that we weren't going to renew the leases. We're going to follow your training and education. And we converted every one of those to lease purchases, single family rent to own properties where we did collect sizable down payments with non-refundable option deposits. They do pay rent. They do take care of maintenance, repairs, utilities, lawn care. These properties are in upstate New York, some of them are in Pennsylvania. So we have some snow they take care of. They do all of it. And it really worked out a lot better for us.
So when you did this conversion, how many houses did you convert, Joe?
I think we had 6 at the time.
What did that generate for you just in upfront cash?
Pretty close to 6 figures just that summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because every one of them in upstate New York, every house is about $100,000 to $200,000. So we were collecting anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000 non-refundable option deposits on the properties.
I heard that works.
It does work. And, it works out well for us. It really works out well for the tenant buyer. We took your advice. We use screenthetenant.com for every one of them. Mm-hmm. And so we know what we're working with. And with my credit experience and knowing some folks at banks, if down the road they decide they want to get a mortgage, I could point them in the right direction. If they want to set it and forget it, I'm okay with that too.
With your experience in banking, I'm opposed to the BRRRR thing just because largely the refinance thing. And everybody who watches me knows I'm violently opposed to guaranteeing debt. How many loans would you say an investor could go into a bank and get today before they get cut off?
So it depends on and this is what I really learned, depends on the lender. There's so many different lenders. I've always had better success with these small town local banks and credit unions versus a Wells Fargo or Bank of America, because sometimes they're a little bit more relationship based. You could get to around 10 and they'll start giving you a hard time. Sometimes they could do what's called portfolio, where they could do them in-house more, but that's built off relationships.
Yeah. And of course, I wear out one bank. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to another bank. They're going to see all these things on my credit report, and they're going to have the same apprehensions that the first bank has. So back in my day, by the way, it was 5. But it didn't take me long to learn that is not even that's one of the big problems, because what am I going to do when they cut me off totally? But more importantly, what am I going to do when another 2008 comes and crap hits the fan and I got all this personally guaranteed debt? And then what am I going to do if I actually want to go borrow some real money to make some big money? And I got my credit report all screwed up, my financial statement all screwed up. I have a hard time getting that message across to the younger folks in the industry that they live long enough, they'll figure it out.
Well, I follow your script, to the T now. Anytime we have one of our houses where the tenant buyer buys us out, if it is one of those houses that I still have, tied to the bank, I'm happy those ones are going away, if anyone are, because that's just limiting that. We don't have too many of those, because I learned your method kind of earlier on. And so when we started scaling, getting more properties, it's in the 20 something now, but the rest of them are on terms.
Mm-hmm. They don't burr anymore.
Right. So how long did it take you to figure out that you didn't have to go to the bank to buy a house?
2017 was the magic year where the magic started hitting the fan.
Yeah.
And 2016 is where it was like June, May of 16. I immersed myself into so much of your information to where, like, my poor wife, if we were anywhere together, if you were in my car, Ron, didn't matter who it was. It could have been the president of the United States. If you were in my car, we were listening to your training. Whether we're going to the grocery store,
Easter Sunday.
didn't matter.
Jeez, I'm honored.
For months that
So you put me above the president. Huh? Okay.
So I really, really became very focused. And I think this is where, and this is what I love about this business, is you don't have to be some type of, rocket scientist or brain surgeon, or you just really need to become laser focused on what it is and just stick to what works, right? And if you lay out the blueprint of what works, like you always say, like, guys always want to change it. And then I get it, because everybody always thinks they know better. But if you just stick to the game plan of what works and execute and really become great at execution, it works.
Right. Even down to the yellow signs. How many people say, oh, they're ugly? Well, that's the point. Put the yellow signs out. They work. Do it. Just like he says, guys.
All right. Well, two things. Number one, I want to know how you go about generating leads, but you just made the point. Two most important ingredients are generate quality leads and then follow up.
Mm-hmm.
If you do those two, the rest is kind of easy, isn't it? Once you master those two, this business is really easy. So what do you do to generate leads?
So now fast forward, we kind of got lucky. We were following one of your podcasts, and this was in the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
You did a podcast with Nate Armstrong talking about social media marketing. We've been part of the Gold Club. I've watched a ton of stuff. Tony Pearl was great. We've done a lot of different things. We hear you talking with Nate. We decide that might be something we want to look into, is social media marketing. So now it's February 2020. Jen and I get with Nate. We decide this is a good fit for us. Let's go. My career has taken off. I now am the finance director for the largest Chevy dealer in the country. I have lunch with the owner a few weeks in February, and they said, we're buying this huge franchise. You're going to get this promotion. You're going to open up more stores. They're giving me this game plan. What's going to happen? March 2020 happens, and the pandemic rolls in. I'm sitting in my office one day talking to a nurse, and everybody's really scared. They don't know what's going on. Because of my Crohn's, I take medication that lowers my immune system. So I talk to my doctor and like, listen, you're at high risk. Like, I don't know if you get this, you might be, it could be really fatal for you. So I leave work. My last day I worked was March 12th, 2020. And within the next day, they say, hey, listen, this is going to probably blow over in a few weeks just to flatten the curve. Stay home. When we open, you'll come back. And so my wife and I kind of kicked around for the next few weeks. Like, what are we going to do? Like, nobody knew what they were going to do. But we just told Nate a few weeks before that, like, we want to get started with this social media marketing. So we decide, you know what, let's go for it. And this was that third fork in the road where we didn't be conservative. We went for it. And so we started our business really taking off full time in the very start of a global pandemic. So
it was March 12th, huh?
Was the last day I had my JOB. And I walked away from a single family income, very, very high paying job. And, there's a lot of risk there. There's a lot of worry there. And obviously, but there's also my health on the line. And if I go back to work and I get this, and I was so afraid if I did, and I leave a young wife with two little ones and, she's a stay-at-home mom, that would be kind of scary. So we had to really kind of not say burn the bridges, but like we were really
burn the boats.
Burn the boats. Like we're going to do this and we're going to make it work no matter what.
Go all in.
March 12th was the day I attended my first seminar.
Wow.
In 1982.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful date.
That's funny.
Yeah, I guess it is. I should make that an anniversary of some sort.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we start getting to social media marketing. I mean, we start getting deals under contract like fairly quickly.
Terms deals or all cash deals?
Terms deals.
Terms.
We're doing terms deals. That's what we're looking for.
Pretty houses and beautiful neighborhoods.
And I'm talking no money down deals, a couple $1,000s down, covering closing costs. We're getting to beautiful houses and beautiful neighborhoods, and it's starting to work. We start taking your advice too, and some other advice of just, kind of growing a team, right? We want to start doing this full time. I can't do it all. Jen can't do it all. we need to bring some folks on. So we bring on a couple of acquisitionists. We get more coaching and mastermind groups along the way. And this is really where we started taking. we ran into our acquisition manager almost 2 years ago. And we're in upstate New York at the time. She's in Pittsburgh. And she says, I want to come learn from you guys. I'll work with you for free just if I can learn. And at the time, we had 2 acquisitionists that we were working with training. Didn't know much, but we were doing a deal a month or so.
In Dispo, we had hired some help to do the rent to own.
Yep. And then we met Brittany. She was a full-time nurse working in Pittsburgh. And she came on like lightning in a bottle. So with the training that we had, the processes that we have, the marketing that we did, we grew a team. So now, fast forward to now, we did 9 deals last month. We have a team of 10 of us. A lot of people are part-time. We do have a couple full-time, and that's including 2 VAs overseas. But there are 10 of us, and we do social media marketing. We've done a lot of mailing, which we're probably going to do another one. We've done cold calling. We've done a lot of methods, but right now I did the stats this morning because I'm always checking that. And we spent $140 a day on social media marketing. So last week, that was a little under $1,000, 900 something dollars. We did 168 incoming warm leads. So it's 168 people who reached out to us and say, I have a house I want to sell.
And this is using Nate?
From his systems. Now, we did customize our own ads. We did learn a lot from him. And then we kind of worked some of our own Joe and Jenn in there, I would say. And from some of your marketing strategies that we've learned from you, from using some of the things that we've learned from Nate, how to set up your social media campaigns, a lot of the things we learned from him, and then just how to really target what we're looking for. So when I do the numbers, we're averaging $5.80 per incoming lead.
Unbelievable. So you have people on your team constantly working social media with multiple different sites to get people to call you, which is the definition of a quality lead, and you get them for $5 each.
Well, it's even a little bit more interesting than that. So when they reach out to us, they see our marketing usually like on Facebook is one of our biggest platforms. That's where we're really doing well on. And so when these folks reach out to us, they're usually sending us a message. I'm interested in selling. And here's where a lot of folks, I guess, kind of get, we get a lot of folks who just write a comment, and some of those comments turn into a lead, which turns into a deal. So we look at everybody who reaches out to us. We have a VA. We designed a script, our own in-house script of a straight line approach, a handful of questions we're going to ask, which determines the next step. So our VAs, one job, who we have basically almost 24/7, is just to get that person through the script. I don't want you having to make decisions. That's after they've got through the script, we have our acquisitionist. And our acquisitionist now is going to kind of sort out if it's somebody I'm going to follow up with in our CRM, if this is somebody who's going to go to a closing call to one of our closers, or if this is somebody who we call the gray script, which is they haven't said no completely, but I could see where there's maybe some motivation here. So let's get on the phone with them and see if I could put them into a closing call, or if it's really better off for them just to go to a follow-up sequence, and we'll follow them later on, right? So that's what the acquisition does. And then those leads then get forwarded to a closer, and our closers get on the phone and they make the magic happen, write the contracts. It's all virtual.
If closers just get on the phone and read the script and get them to positive answers on terms and then make an appointment, right?
That's it. And because they're all virtual, once they get on the phone and we iron out the terms, they send over the agreement, we get it done to the point where Jen and I don't talk to sellers. We don't talk to buyers. It's all done through automation or our team. We have the right people who are fantastic. And that's huge, is the culture of our team.
So is most of your leads coming from this social media?
Yes, sir. We do a lot of referrals because of us branding ourselves and networking with a lot of other folks, realtors, investors. They know because of our ability to do these terms, create finance deals, that we can do deals that were a lot of situations it's not working anywhere else. So we get a lot of that way.
So referrals, of course, always.
Ton.
Jen, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When is your course coming out on social media?
That's a great question. I do have a couple little things that we share here and there, but I gotta say, if you do run ads, because I see a lot popping up, especially down here in Florida, you have to be active on that business page, and that's the biggest piece of advice.
You or somebody you appoint. Yeah.
Correct. Your business has to be active. It doesn't have to be you per se, a VA, whomever. But if you don't have anything going on in your page, we always liken it to walking into a store in a mall. Like what's the vibe, right? Is it totally dead and quiet and eerie, nothing happening since like 2015? Or is it lively, music's playing, things are happening?
You on TikTok?
We are. I'm not very good at it yet, but we do have an account.
Well, you're not very good at what? I'm on TikTok, believe it or not.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And I wear all my clothing. I don't do anything stupid. I have somebody stand in front of me with a phone and ask me a question.
Okay.
And I simply answer the question. And it creates TikTok videos. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I bet I ain't been at it now 5 or 6 weeks. I've got 30,000 followers.
That's
I
amazing.
don't know if it monetizes anything, but it doesn't matter. It's free. You get the word out there. Do you have videos on YouTube as well?
Yes.
And when you put videos on YouTube, what are you driving them to?
It depends. I actually have one for our buying page where we'll upload videos for sellers to go check us out. They love hearing seller stories, I call it, different situations sellers are in. And then
we also do we do have students that we teach. We do have audience. So like every week I do free events where we go over various different things. So creativefinanceplaybook.com, thing on Facebook. So we do share a ton of content there. Same on YouTube. So we have a YouTube channel and it's kind of like you, like I love to kind of give back to people and let them see that there is this world out there that one check that they can get can really change their whole direction. Because I think back like now, if I didn't have that ability to know that we could buy real estate without using banks, without using our credit, I could not have walked away from my job because that's where you need that W-2 to secure financing. So if I didn't have this terms business, this would never have been where we are right now.
Are you still doing junkers?
Yeah, I made a deal this morning.
It's got to be a really good one, though.
So are you wholesaling them or rehabbing them and retailing them?
So we do a series of different things. So out of our 9 deals, I would say the majority of them are terms deals. We found a real good niche there and it works well for the sellers and buyers. Now, there are a handful of those we will assign every single month.
Why?
So I know you were going to say that because I've heard you say that before. So it depends on areas and where they are. So there are some areas that we love to keep, and then there's some areas that we just don't have any interest in keeping.
Hey, it works in the war zones too, Joe.
Oh, I know. However,
I'm telling you, those cheap properties, probably the ones you're assigning. If you take a real hard look at them, man, the rate of return on those things is ridiculous. Because the rents aren't much less than they were outside of the war zones, and the prices are way down, and the terms are so easy to get from those kind of sellers. Yeah, I want to see an attitude change there, man.
I love the
buy on terms, you sell on terms. Period.
Every time. Right. I knew you were going to say this, but there are some that like even the higher end properties. I don't really want to keep some of those.
Why?
Some folks, their business is more geared to like Airbnb. And sometimes it'll work decent for a rental. Sometimes the numbers don't work out great for a rental, but they work out really well for an Airbnb.
Yeah, you Airbnb?
We don't. So there's a lot of times where we could assign that somebody does and collect a $20,000 to $50,000 assignment fee.
You got to get with my guys now, John Gerstenlauer and Scott Poyer. They got a whole course on that. They're ruining all my students. They're converting them all to Airbnbs. But it's such a huge cash flow.
Yeah.
It's so easy and it's home-based. I mean, really, it's a great exit strategy. Take a look at it, because when you see the amount of income coming in, which is what this is all about, you do give up the non-refundable deposit, but you soon overtake it with the income. Those things are really taking storm and becoming the business opportunity of America for real estate investors. And you live in Tampa now, you got to have a ton of them down there, but you can't have too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the point. Was Jen said if I open up another business, she was going to kill me, because between the deals that we're making, the rental properties that we have, rent-to-own properties, and coaching kids, because we homeschool both of our kids, so we have a little bit unique situation here. And we just moved to Florida 1 month ago, so we had a unique situation where we came down here on vacation during the wintertime. Following your advice is you don't have to live up in the freezing tundra. And when you're working from home, and we are almost Canadian at this point, we live so high up north that from November till almost May, it's freezing cold. So we left, came down to Florida for 1 month, figured let's try working remote and let's see how our business does. Mm-hmm. We did it for 1 month. It worked out really well. We ended up staying in Florida for 3 months, just kept on staying. And it got so much to the point where my wife is like, I'm not going back to New York. And
smart woman.
It's very smart.
Yeah.
So we had the conversation with the kiddos and like, let's do this. So we went back to New York within 45 days, sold our house, moved back down here, and here we are.
And Tony's down there too now.
Just moved down here.
We need to connect.
Yep, absolutely. So we're pretty excited to be here. And
well, you're in a great state, man.
Very.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Took me 20 years to convince Tony to move.
Hey, it's better late than never.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so today you have a handful of people, mm-hmm. and you just did 9 deals in 1 month, and most of them are termed, you say. So you're building a pretty strong monthly cash flow on that monthly spread, mm-hmm. so that you don't have to do anything. And that's what I want you to see. That's why I don't want you to turn loose at these houses. I'm telling you, all the wholesalers and rehabbers, don't you feel sorry for them? Huh? Every day, go back to their job, get a check, pay taxes, go get another one, and then nothing when it's over, or when times get bad or whatever. They got nothing. I mean, they're building no future really.
Right.
And we don't know what's coming up. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. But all we do know is people always need a place to live, don't they? Mm-hmm.
And that's always going to be the case. That's why we've looked at different multifamily and things like that. And we just always have stuck to what's worked with these single family homes, not saying we won't ever change down the road.
Well, I'm not saying, but there's always commercial as well.
Yeah.
Most people get into it. Come see me. Come see my commercial boot camp. You guys need to get back in the quick start to change a lot. Changed a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of new stuff as well. And then I want you to think about Airbnb, because it's nothing more than instead of renting it, you put it on Airbnb.com, because honestly, that's about the only difference. A few things you got to do to get ready to go. But Jen will enjoy cleaning out your house and taking all your junk down and putting these houses. That's because that's pretty much what most people do to get them staged the first time. Anyway, if you were starting all over, what would you do differently than you did?
Well, I think I touched on that a little earlier. I would have really immersed myself in more masterminds, more coaching. I would have put, I look at people, what they spend on college, right? I never went to college, but I look at what folks have spent
mm-hmm.
yearly on college, and then they don't even use that degree, right? So I think if you're willing to do that, to learn how to make $35,000 a year, spend some money, because everybody looks at coaching. They say, well, how much does it cost? And, you go over the pricing and things like that. But what it does, it fast forwards everything. And so I look back of my mistakes were not getting to more coaching earlier, not thinking big enough, thinking too small by taking other people's advice, and getting out of my own head, right? Thinking that I can do this, and it is only as hard as you make it. And if you really just stick to what works and get around the right folks, the sky's the limit with this business, and it's in the pudding.
True. So you would do differently. A, you quit listening to the morons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quit listening to all the broke people trying to tell you how to get rich.
Yep.
B, you would constantly implement. As soon as you lack off of the implementation, harder to get it back going again. And I know you up and down several years there, as most people do. I'm seeing people all the time, been 20 years in my world, coming back after taking whatever long vacation. And so you would implement, and then you're going to have to get this lead generating thing. You got to crack the code, because I can tell you, they got to be quality leads. And I'm really having to pound hard on that message in this hot market. Quit chasing people that advertise on the internet. Most half of them are listed and sold anyway, and start getting people to call you, which is what you figured out pretty early in the game. That's a big difference right there. That's a big deal. Dealing with people who want to deal with you. So any parting words for our audience today? Believe it or not, our time's up.
Well, I think you said it right in the head that this is some of our core values in our companies. Do business with people who want to do business with you.
Mm-hmm.
And really try to focus on how can we help people. And if you think about, we get paid to solve people's real estate problems. And if we could help them get what they want, we'll get what we want out of it too, most likely. So this is a great business to be in. It doesn't take a lot of money to get started. I mean, we have students who have walked away from their full-time jobs, with very little tiny budgets. You don't need to have a fortune to get started in this, which a lot of people perceive, which you, the godfather of real estate, have been teaching for, so long now. That is that misconception. I need to use credit. I need to use banks, and I need to have a lot of money. Yeah. Right? Those things are all wrong. So if you think that, spend some time in Ron's world, learn the right way, don't make the mistakes, and you won't be, you'll be very happy.
And I'd follow that up by learning is the first step.
Yeah.
Then we got to actually implement.
Yeah.
And then we got to have a little grit and hang in there long enough to overcome all these things that we run across that we think are real. They're not even real. And do our best to talk ourselves out of doing it. And I always tell people, Joe, if you can't do this business, I'm not sure what business you can do, because most of them have way more problems than we got in this business. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. So, Jen, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and I'm gonna leave you alone.
Okay.
If you could change one thing about Joe, what would it be?
Change? Oh my gosh.
Put you on the spot with that one, didn't I?
Yeah.
Good. I want to hear it.
Joe promises there will be no repercussion after this answer.
I don't have something I would change. I like that, he's a visionary. He has a lot of grandeur ideas. And so I love all of them. But I think now, he's really honed into, we spend a lot of time with coaches and masterminds to know that you really have to have an integrator to move forward with things. So, he is changing that one thing where, we tend to be excited about a lot, but you have to develop those systems and processes so that you don't have to be involved in every little step of the way. The less you do, the more you make, apparently.
Yeah, I read that book. Okay, well, I'm not going to put Joe on the spot because I don't want to create any issues here. And ask him the same question. So anyway, I thank you guys so much for taking the time to spend with us. I know that our audience will appreciate you, learn from you, and hopefully get very motivated to do what you're doing. Thank you for your help. And I'll see you guys, I guess, at the end of the month.
Yeah. See you soon. Can't wait.
Couple weeks.
All right. See you there.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.